NFL 2025 team previews. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't want to jinx anything, but so far it looks like this could be Burrow's first uninterrupted summer of his career. Every offseason, he's had to deal with some type of injury or holdout heading into the new season, so it's no surprise the Bengals always get off to a slow start. The Bengals are just 1-9 in the Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor era in the first 2 weeks of the season. This is obviously something the Bengals are aware of, having just a single win in the first 2 weeks the last 5 seasons. So it appears the focus has been to change that. Starters are getting more reps in camp and expected to do the same in preseason games. I think because the Bengals have been so awful to open the season, I think in week one they come out and just absolutely wall up division foe Cleveland. That's one week one bet I'd make right now. Plus, they need to get out to a good start because their schedule gets tough middle to late. The Bengals finished 9-8 last year and missed the playoffs by one game, and you can take your pick of any of the losses that easily could have been wins. Maybe their home opener to the Patriots with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Bengals were double-digit favorites in that game and lost outright. Two heartbreakers to division rival Baltimore, losing one game by a field goal in overtime, the other one just a single point. Bengals lost in the final minutes to the Chiefs and Chargers. Burrow finished the season as like a top 4 quarterback in all meaningful metrics. Jamar Chase led the NFL in yards, receptions, and touchdowns. The overall lack of team success or wins in general is probably the only factor that cost Chase an award of some kind. Would've, could've, should've, but didn't was the theme to the Bengals' 2024 season. Now, the Bengals' offseason was all about retaining their key offensive stars. Other than that, there's no real significant changes on this roster. $450 million in total spending this year, but only 35 of that has been on free agents. That's the challenge Duke Tobin, Bengals GM, has. You secure the big contract extension to Burrow, Chase, T. Higgins. Now you have salary cap issues, depth, and injuries matter a lot more now. And it's almost like a waste of money if you don't have at least a halfway decent defense. And it's the defense that desperately needs improvement here. They let go of longtime defensive coordinator Captain Lou, replaced him with like a college coach who's never been more than a linebacker coach in the NFL. And I'd be willing to call like any fresh, young, up-and-coming defensive coordinator a positive, but the Bengals went with basically like a less qualified version of Lou Anarumo, who I'm not even sure why he took the blame, really. He's always done more with less talent, but someone had to be blamed for the defense, I guess. On the surface, the defensive numbers from last year don't look bad, but when you consider they somehow faced 12 different backup quarterbacks because of like timing luck or mid-game injuries, the Cincinnati defense faced the highest percentage of snaps against backup quarterbacks. They saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson twice, Cooper Rush, Mason Rudolph, Desmond Ridder, Andy Dalton. Based on EPA, the Bengals faced the easiest schedule of opposing quarterbacks. So when you filter it down to just snaps versus starting quarterbacks, the Bengals defense ranked second worst in EPA per play allowed. A bunch of opposing quarterbacks had their season-high best games against Cincinnati, too. Based on EPA per dropback, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Gardner Minshew all had their best games of the season versus the Cincy defense. This, of course, now makes last year's 9 wins and missing the playoffs look even worse. And, it's hard to even imagine this, but the defense could very likely be worse this season. We know they didn't do anything in free agency strengthening the defense, so surely they must have been busy in the draft, right? Nope. They got edge guy Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, but that's about it. No secondary help for a unit that didn't even have a single player grade higher than 68 in cover corners. Their top cover corner last year, Mike Hilton, he's now gone. I guess the Bengals just think like a change at defensive coordinator is going to help them in coverage and tackling. Bengals allowed the second most yards after the catch of any team last year. Not to mention the Bengals benefited greatly from like opponent penalties. Bengals wide receivers generated a league-high 16 pass interference calls. Now that could just be a result of having elite wide receiver talent, but they'll need to not only repeat that, but even do more this season to make up for this defense. Bengals face a league average schedule of opponents, but do have 2 tough stretches. Starting week 4, travel to Denver to play in the altitude on the second leg of a road trip, at home versus Detroit, and then back on the road in Green Bay. Week 13, short week, travel to Baltimore on Thursday Night Football, and then have to go to Buffalo the following week just to then go home and play Baltimore again. The Bengals have a listed win total of 9.5 games, and when I create my power ratings for each team, I use a bunch of different advanced metrics, but I slightly weight defense more. And simply put, what I mean by that is if you have like two evenly matched teams, but one has slightly better defensive numbers, I'll have the team with the better defensive numbers rated higher. And this is because I'm using these ratings for betting, not to determine like which team's better. And defense, you need more to cover spreads. I don't care if the offense is good enough to go up 2 touchdowns, but can the defense keep the other team from a backdoor cover late on like meaningless scores? The juice on the over 9.5 wins was just at -150 a couple days ago, but as of this recording on June 29th, it's 9.5 over -120. I have them projected as a 9-win team, but rather than betting under 9.5 wins, which I could have got at like +125, I did bet the Bengals to miss the playoffs at +160. I made this bet back in early June. It was one of the first bets I made this offseason once I saw that the Bengals had no sense of urgency to fix the defense and they were stalling, trying to figure out contract stuff with Trey Hendrickson. I knew the defense wasn't their priority, and I went looking for ways to bet against the Bengals team and found a good number for them to miss the playoffs. I did also just recently bet under 10.5 wins at -155. I don't really mind laying juice on season-long bets. Of course, it sucks when they get graded and it loses. I often end up regretting it then, but it seems good right now to bet against them being an 11-win team. The offense will no doubt be top 5. I'm pretty sure about that, assuming like no key injuries, but they're going to need to even outperform that expectation if they want to have a season that resembles any type of success. Be on the lookout for the Cleveland Browns team preview coming up next. Until next time, good luck with your bets.